Hello crafty friends, this is the Paper Chef here. Welcome to part 4 of To Infinity Card and Beyond. In this series we're making all kinds of different infinity cards with the help of our Brother ScanNCut for creating the cardstock panels, the designer series paper panels, cutting out pattern paper, stamped images. The ScanNCut is the way to go to really make these precise measurements. In parts 4 and 5, I'm going to be showing you how to create a 6x6 infinity card. So the final measurements of that card will be 6x6. We're still going to be using the Sweet Little Stockings designer series paper, Evening Evergreen, Cherry Cobbler ink, some other inks that coordinate as well. This is the card that inspired this entire series. This card here is an A2 infinity card, and I showed you how to create A2 infinity cards with the help of your Brother ScanNCut in parts 1, 2, and 3. This was one of my swap cards, and this was created by Jill of Saipan Stamper. And it was from a swap that I did with the girls from Guam and Saipan and the Pacific Island girls, all demonstrators. I'll show you these while my A2 cards I created in parts 1, 2, and 3 while this is cutting, but let's just get right to it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a piece of Evening Evergreen cardstock, 12 by 12, onto the mat. I'm using an SDX 125. You can follow along with whichever model of ScanNCut you have. I'll show you the load the mat button, but I'm just going to show you how I help the mat load a little bit. I'm just going to go ahead and turn on my machine, and when you first turn on your machine, the mat unloads. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just load the mat, and I like to put both hands there. And these rollers, see, sometimes it goes in a little bit crooked and I have to keep trying again, but that's why I use my hands as a guide. Let me show you both of these rollers, excuse the squeaking. And that's just because my mat is really quite, oh there it goes, it's loading just fine this time. Quite old, I am getting a new one soon, but I do keep resticking it, and I have tutorials on how to restick your mat and get the most of it. So now what I'm going to do is show you where that setting was and show you what my template looks like for my designer series paper, so then I can go ahead and erase the screen. So this was the load mat button. So let's start at the very beginning, and you can make reusable templates when you make your infinity cards, which really does help a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and delete all patterns because I do have that saved. When you turn on your ScanNCut, you're going to see pattern and scan. For this tutorial, we're just going to be using the built-in patterns. And to cut the cardstock, we need rectangles. We're going to click here to the shapes. And you could just select a rectangle to begin with, but I like to always just start with a square. So just take the first shape, which is a square. To turn it into a rectangle, you're going to uncheck this box, because if you don't check this, or actually just check this, select this box. If you don't select that, then every time you change the height and width, they're going to stay in proportion to each other. So be sure that that is selected so that you can change the height and width independently of each other. So what we want the height to be 6 inches. And we want the width to be 3 inches. And we want 4 of these because these are the background of our card. So let's go ahead and change the number to 4. Okay, and set that on the mat. So it's going to say there's not enough space on the mat. So, well, how can that be? So just, this is what I'm going to show you how to troubleshoot. So you're going to click OK, and you go ahead and just put 3 like it says. Now, we need to get the 4th one on the mat, and we can easily get it on the mat, but not in the vertical configuration it's in. So just go ahead and click on that. So I just don't want you to worry about that. I just want you to go here, edit, and I want you to go object, edit, and just duplicate it. So we're just going to make 2 of those. So now we still have 4, but we know this can't go on the mat like this or like this. It can't go on the mat vertically, but it can go on the mat horizontally. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to select all the objects, click here, select all the objects. This is selecting everything on the mat, click OK. And we're going to do what's called auto layout. So click OK. And this is the auto layout button. This just takes all of your shapes on your mat, click on that, And when you select the first option, it's going to turn everything. It's going to take all your shapes and turn them in the directions they need to go in to get to be placed on the mat efficiently. So it moved those 3 over there and this one here. It could have just as well kept 1, 2, 3 up and 1 sideways, but this is the most efficient layout. So now, speaking of this layout, you may just have, maybe you don't have 12 by 12 cardstock and you want to just, maybe you only have 8.5 by 11 cardstock. In this case, if you don't have 12 by 12 cardstock like I have, because I'm using an in color 12 by 12 cardstock pack, if you don't have that, just go ahead and cut 3 of these panels out of the 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. You won't be able to cut this last panel yet, but that's fine because you can always, I'm going to go ahead and start cutting just so I'm talking. You can always cut those extra panels out. So you're going to need 4 for each card. I'm going to click OK, 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 and cut. So everything I just showed you can be done on, and we're going to go ahead and click Start. Everything can be done on the CM models, STX models, whichever models of machine you have. So I'm using the STX 125. So now, what I would like to do, this is a much quieter machine than other machines, than the CM models. Okay. Okay, it's cutting, it's doing good. So I'll just show you this card. Okay. So here is an A2 card. See how that opens up? This is an infinity card. These just all give you ideas. I think I need to show you these when their camera's a little far away. Okay, and then here's another panel. So that was the 4th panel. Each card has 4 panels. And you always go back to the beginning. So these cards are also known as never-ending cards. So I'll show you the others as we're cutting the Designer Series paper in a little while. We're going to click OK. And now what we're going to do is we could unload the mat, but we can just, or we can unload the mat, but in this case we don't really need to unload the mat because I'm just going to take this off and just go ahead and load the Designer Series paper. So now I'm going to just go ahead and pull this cardstock off. I'm using what's called a pattern interval of 0 because it's the smallest pattern interval I can get to. And I'll show you how to change that pattern interval so you have no space, very little space between objects. We'll actually check that for the next one. Okay, so we're going to pull these all off. Okay, these are our panels. Now, cardstock is done. This is your card. This is all you need for your card. And we're now going to take a piece of Designer Series paper. I've already cut all the cute papers out of, I've already cut the patterns that, where's my 6-inch card that we're working on here? Let's find that. So I've already cut the patterns in this paper and this one, and I could show you some of this paper in just a moment, but see, I didn't cut out the stars yet, and here's the other side of it, the stockings. I'm going to go ahead and orient the paper that way, but I'm going to cut this. I'm going to be using mostly the stars for this. So I want to put the side up that you don't want. So the mat is going to maybe stick to some of your panels. Okay, so what I'm saying is when you're cutting your panels, the mat, when you lift this up, a little bit of the paper might get ripped. So the paper that you're going to use more of, you're going to face that up. So I use this more than I use that. So I did use this side a little bit, but I wanted this side cut up like that. Also, since some of the panels, like if it does matter, I would like these to be vertical. It just in case, so I would like that pattern. So it doesn't matter for that stocking pattern, but for some of the patterns, I wanted the little tiny stockings to be facing up. Let me try to find my little bucket of crafty goodness here and show you what I'm talking about. So for the squares, obviously, it doesn't matter which way the panels are facing. But if I were to cut these same things in a rectangle, right, it would matter because you want the stockings facing up. So just at this point, keep in mind which way, the orientation of your paper. So all I've done is load Designer Series paper. And what I'm going to do now for this part is I'm just going to go home. I'm going to delete that. What I want to show you is how to create this template. So I'm going to go ahead and retrieve my template to show you what we're about to do. Okay, retrieve it from my machine. And I also need to make a little room anyway because I probably can't save. This is the template we're creating. These are the parts you're going to need for your card. So again, you need 12 by 12 Designer Series paper. And we're going to be able to retrieve that template and use it over and over. So let's go home, and I need to, when I go to retrieve data, I need to just delete something so that I could show you how to save it later, because There's no more room on the machine. I did a little jack-o'-lantern project recently, so we'll delete that. I don't need it. So now I'm all ready. So here you are again. You're about to make your designer series paper template that you need for the infinity card. So you're going to go to, you turn on your machine, you see pattern and scan. You're going to go to pattern, and you're going to go to the shapes. And so now we're going to get that square again. And we're going to make the squares, the first ones we need. We're going to leave it's in proportion. So when we change the height and width, they stay in proportion. That's what we want. And all of these measurements are in a PDF handout. I've already finished the measurements for the A2 cards. I've done a PDF handout. It's on my blog. It's linked in the description of this video. So you already have the measurements for this type of card and all the panels. And by the time I create part 5 of this video, of this series, I will have a PDF handout for this one as well. And then I'm going to keep on making PDF handouts for every time I make a different size infinity card. So like I said, the series will go on to infinity and beyond. And maybe we'll even be doing this in the spring and have different patterns. Different patterns besides the sweet little stockings. But I'm just using that definitely for the next 2 parts because I have a lot of embellishments and things that match already made. So that's what I'm working on. So I want 2.75 or 2 3/4 if you're using a paper trimmer. So 2 3/4 inch, right? 2.75 inch. We need 8 of those. So go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 4 across is what I was thinking. So we need 8 total of these squares. Okay, so they're on the mat. There you go. And look at that. Now let me talk about the pattern interval I mentioned before. Go to the settings. And the pattern interval, I called it 0, but it's actually a pattern interval of 1. It doesn't go down to 0. I should have just said a pattern interval of 1. So you see how the 1 is the default. What that means is when you have it set to 1, okay, like this, it's the smallest interval you can have between those different squares that you're cutting. So make sure it's set to 1 and you'll be able to fit lots more on your mat. And it's the default setting because there's a little box around it. So pattern interval is found in there in the settings. So where were we? We're going to add the next shape we need. We're going to add. So you're going to go to add pattern. Go ahead and select that same shape again. And this time we need some rectangles. So we're going to make the rectangles, let's see, 2 point, we'll change this in a second. 2.75, so that's still the same height. But this time go ahead and click this box because we need to change the width independently. We don't want them to stay in proportion. So we want 1 1/4 is the width. Okay, so now we need 8 of those. So again, same height as before, right? We made squares. Now we're making rectangles. And if you do have to worry about the pattern of your paper, maybe you want some going in different directions. But I'm going to go ahead and make all 8 because if you cut enough designer series paper, I'm going to make all 8 going the same way. If you cut enough designer series paper, you're going to have enough options for your patterns for these to go in all different directions, and you'll be able to make the cards very easily. So now let's go ahead and add again. So we've done this. We've done our 8 rectangles. Now we need some small squares. We're going to go up to pattern, shape, square, and go ahead and make it a 1 1/4 square. 1.25. So 1 1/4 inch if you're using a trimmer. And we need 8 of those. And they fit perfectly on this mat. And we still have enough room for our crafty goodness, extra embellishments, card banners, crafts and things. So we still have enough room left on our paper. But if you wanted to make extras of these, you still have room. You could take some rectangles and turn them sideways and make them this way. You could make an extra row of those. So now what I want to do before I cut this is I want to show you how to save this. We're going to go ahead and click save. And it's asking where do you want to save? We're going to save it to our machine. And you saw that I cleaned out space earlier. We're clicking on save. And it's in the memory, so we'll retrieve that later. But right now we're just going to go ahead and cut it. What I just showed you works on any model of ScanNCut. So go ahead and select cut. After you click OK, you click cut. We're going to go ahead and, it says 3 minutes because it rounds up to the nearest minute. So it really takes like a little more than 2, but not quite 3. So it's cutting that. Sometimes, just to make sure my paper doesn't slip, I give it a little rub while it's cutting. And now that my camera's a little farther away, I can put these here to show you these others. I think I just showed you this one, but I just want to show you my A2 infinity cards. These should all just give you ideas on how to decorate your cards. So what's really fun about using designer series paper like the Sweet Little Stockings is that you can use your ScanNCut to cut out the different embellishments. And now we're back to the beginning. You can use lots of different coordinating colors of ink to cut out your sentiment panels. And I even use some little die cuts. You can see the stitching there. I use some dies. So all infinity card concepts of how you decorate, those concepts are all the same. It's just a matter of different measurements you start out with each infinity card project. Yeah, here's my favorite one because I made the little kitty, and I can show you how to use the little blending brushes for that. And then we're back to the, so we've done, there's the 4 panels, we're back to the beginning. Okay, so, and I'm almost done cutting, which is nice. So that's what, we're gonna have I'm gonna have extra stars now to be able to use for the panels for this card here. So then the next card you see is gonna have, oops, let me start up. The next card you see is gonna have some of these, will have stars on them. So now let's peel off the designer series paper. There's that pattern interval of 1. I shouldn't have said 0, but as many times as I use the machine, I sometimes misspeak, but then I always correct myself. So this is a little bit tight, so you have to get in there with your spatula. So I'm trying to get that off, and I'm just going to have him focus that for a moment so you can see it looked a little blurry. So now what I'm going to do is just take this off and show you how to get these off. And you could just keep cutting these over and over, but save this. You're going to get rid of all this little scraps here, but you do have this nice piece of designer series paper that you can save and use for, like, you can die cut this piece out if you have the dies that go with this, or use your ScanNCut. This one's a full one that could be cut, but I just rather use this piece for some other projects. So to get these off of the mat, you can use your little spatula. Okay, and I just want to give you a visual about why you needed all these different size panels. And now you're going to take all your colors, and I'm going to show you the paper and show you how to get these. So now also, I'll show you how these will work on the card. Now also you can bend your mat. I'm going to be cutting some more, so what I'm not going to actually, I'm just going to take these off later, but I'm just saying you can bend your mat and get them off a little bit, or use your spatula and get them off a little bit. So let's go back to here. I want to show you a couple more things, so excuse the squeaking. So we're going to focus there. Now we have the stylus. Click OK. So you have your template which you saved. So now we're going to just click when you're all done cutting. Say you cut a bunch of these papers out. I'm going to click on the home button. Is it okay to delete all patterns? Sure, because remember we saved it earlier. So you come back to your machine. You come back the next day. You turn on your ScanNCut. And you're like, well, I want to make some more of those 6x6 infinity cards. Don't I have a template somewhere for these to cut out my designer series paper? Yes, you have a template. So you're going to go to retrieve data, and you've saved the template to your machine. It's asking where do you want to save the template. So you go to your machine, and you go to the very bottom, and there's the template. I see I made one earlier. There it is. And now you retrieve it, and you can cut it as many times as you want. So I want to show you the paper, and then I'll be cutting. And then so in the next video, and I'm also going to be making other backgrounds. So I'm going to cut some of these. I'm going to use the Evening Evergreen, and then I'm going to make some cards in other coordinating colors. And when I come back, I'll have other card samples to show you, and I will show you how to score your card and how to assemble your cards. Okay, and I've also done tutorials on how to cut out these different papers using your ScanNCut, like these different, I guess you would call them critters, right? So that's always fun. Now, and there's also some dies in the suite. Some of you might have dies, but you can also cut out these critters for some fun and for some embellishments on your ScanNCut. So this is the Sweet Stockings Designer Series paper. It will be linked in the description of this video. So you see how I'm just going to keep on cutting. I need to cut a piece of this one because I haven't cut it yet. Now when you do cut patterns like this, which is really nice about the 6x6, see, some of those, when you make the 6x6 squares, are going to have fun little critters in them already centered in there. And some of them won't, but it doesn't matter because then I have the other side to use for the cards. So it doesn't matter that these don't all have critters in them because some of the critters, I'm just going to cut them out with the ScanNCut. Here's the piece we just cut. So you can see all these great coordinating colors. And if I have the packaging, which I don't think I have I'm not sure. Oh, here's the packaging. I can tell you the coordinating colors, and I kind of sum things up. So these are stockings. There's the stars. Here's some fun ones. And then the back of it. This is a perfect piece for this infinity card project because this has the Christmas lights. All right, so let me tell you the coordinating colors. They are basic black, bumblebee, cherry cobbler, cinnamon cider, evening evergreen, old olive, and pool party. So in part 3, I showed you how to use the old olive, the cherry cobbler, the evening evergreen, and the cinnamon cider. I showed you how to use all those colors to stamp these panels. And what I decided to do is I just ended up I had a lot of panels left over from part 3 in this series. I saved them, and I thought that they would work well on this infinity card here. So that's where I came up with, you know, just using these so you could see some of the side parts. And then you can also just put embellishments on straight. All right, so lastly, as I sum up, you just got done making, you made 4 panels, and you can go ahead and use a trimmer if you need to. These 4 panels of cardstock, which you need, and it should be good Stampin' Up! Cardstock. This is good, thick, high quality cardstock. It's evening evergreen, but use a coordinating color. So you made 4 panels. We're making a 6-inch infinity card, so those 4 panels were 6 inches, right? 6 inches by 3 inches. This is a very easy card as far as measurements go. Okay, notice how some of the panels, when you assemble the card, this is the original position of the card, or this position. When you assemble the card, you're going to have 2 panels going horizontally and 2 panels going vertically. By the end of the series, it's going to be second nature. It's starting to become second nature for me, even though I just started making these not too long ago myself. So when you do the folding, that's where the magic happens. It's how you glue the edges together. Okay, then after we made the 4 panels that were made of cardstock that we're going to be scoring and assembling in the next video, they were 3x6. We made squares that were 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. And the reason we made the squares that size is because they have a nice, then you have a nice 1/4 inch margin around them. I also like an 1/8 inch margin, so you can adjust it accordingly if you want an extra layer, or you want there to be an 1/8 inch margin, but I just thought this one looked good for this kind of card because it was already a big card, so I left it 1/4 inch margins. Okay, so we made 8 of those panels that were 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. And then we made lots of, I guess they might be on the mat still. Yes, we did. We made lots of rectangles. Let me grab one of these off the mat. So these rectangles were the same height. They were still the 2 3/4 height, but they were, let's say 1 1/4 high. And they're going to be going on the parts of the card this way, and some of them will be going, let me open it up. Let me just start here. Okay, some of them will be going that way, and some of them will be like vertically, and some will be going horizontally. Okay, let me just open up the card and show you the other panels. Then you also have, we made lots of little square panels, and these were 1 1/4 inch high, and they're going to be going in the corners of our cards. And you're going to be able to use both sides if there's a pattern showing on the other side, but this one doesn't have a good pattern to use for that one, so we will use patterns like this for the little corner ones. So that's what we made so far. We made 24 panels. We made 8, 8, and 8. 24 Designer Series paper panels, and we made 4 cardstock panels. So now we're ready to design and assemble the cards. So I'll see you in the next tutorial where we will do some scoring, assembly, maybe even some tips and tricks on these embellishments. So that's all for now. This is the Papered Chef. Please go back and check out parts 1, 2, and 3 if you have not already done so, where you can learn how to make the A2 infinity cards. Thank you all for watching. This is the Papered Chef.